Uh, Hi, Pavesh. How are you, man?
Hi, good morning, Pelelani. How are you doing? It's been a long week for me, so I'm going to go very slow today. I'm thinking about my answers as I'm going through them. And as
Yeah.
I told you, I might just do some kind of referencing because I've made notes in case I forget anything.
All right. No, thank you, my brother. And I would just want to thank you for just availing yourself for our server chat today. I know that it's a busy season for everyone. I know it's people are very busy these days, and just for you to take your time to have a conversation with us today, it's something that is very special. And again, I would just like to welcome our viewers today. My name is Pelelani, and I work for an organization called Be Smart SA, which is an organization that focuses on trying to help out to build the next generation of accountants. And we have created a platform like this where we call in our guests to come and share their stories and to come and share about their journeys so that people will be inspired and students would want to take on a career as an accountant or a career as a bookkeeper or a career as a chartered accountant. And all that we are going to be doing today, we are just going to have conversations between me and Pavesh. And today, Pavesh, I have a couple of questions that I've drafted for
Okay.
you, basically. So, as part of them, brah, I just wanna learn more about you. Who's Pavesh? Give us a bit about your background and your experience in the accounting world.
Okay, so Paveshan, or Pavi for short, that's my nickname. Grown
Hmm.
up in a small rural town in the south coast of KZN called Umzinto.
Yeah.
Um, I've pretty much stayed in that district my entire childhood.
Yeah.
Scottsboro is currently where I reside. Some people call it Scottburg. It's basically been a farm and a coastal life for me, so the beach and the sea.
Hmm.
That's pretty much me. So very simple beginnings, and then moved to the Western Cape in South Africa. Cape Town's been where I've spent over a decade of my life or my young adulthood. Um, so Perversion's someone that's probably experienced a lot and seen a lot. So he hopes that he can shed some light on, where young people might want to go, careers in accounting and finance and careers around accounting and finance. So I'm trying to summarize now because there's obviously been so much that's happened in my life. So I came out to the University of Cape Town,
Yeah.
studied a bachelor's of business science in finance and accounting. At some point in my studies as well, I was a South African Actuaries Development Scholar. So I'm an alumni of that program, which I found out last year.
Yeah.
And I have a background in maths and stats and all those kinds of wonderful things as well. So at some point, when I decided to make the move back into becoming a chartered accountant and going back into my business science, finance, accounting degree, I finished off a stats major as well.
Yeah.
I think that I see all of this now as being a strength, and I think as you get to know me and also my work experiences, so it's been a roller coaster from experiencing the Big Four, Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, through vacation work experiences or being in a case consulting competition at KPMG, which I was selected for. We got close to South African finals for national.
Hmm.
I've worked in equity research, which is a type of investment banking. So it's a pure
Yeah.
finance field. So I was the
Yeah.
first intern selected there in
Hmm.
Johannesburg, Sandton.
Hmm.
And then I also moved into specialist fields after that. Like I worked at the Apex Group, which is a British Irish company with a significant European presence.
Yeah.
We were outsourced center from South Africa to the rest of the world. So most of my team sat in London, in the United Kingdom, and the Channel Islands, but we also had a New York desk. So I worked on the European desk. There I gained a lot of insights into, I would say, complex accounting structures and also investment accounting and investment finance knowledge. So I've seen both the back end and the front end of the finance world, and then obviously some more recent experiences were being in audit, specialized financial services at another firm, which was great. Yeah, and right now I'm an academic, so don't ask me how, but yeah, I've also built that up. So I'm currently a lecturer. So,
Hmm.
and I've just taken a course or module this week. We also have, I think one thing we do well is work integrated learning. So I'm
Yeah.
teaching young people to get their professional brand, their LinkedIn presence out there. Last year, at the end of last year, I helped them simulate a business case study to give them a feel. So these are our first years and highest certificate students, which are people who are
yeah.
basically bridging from a matric certificate to university but haven't quite made the requirements. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man. I think that you shared a lot of things, man, and just like how you have explained, you have been around and you're an experienced person, and you've been on different fields in the accounting world. And I think a lot of our students would be inspired and they would want to learn more from you. But basically, I think I have another question where I would just want to know where do you see yourself in 5 to 7 years, and how does that align with your current experience and studies, you know?
Yeah, so I think one thing I've had to do in the last few months is sit back and kind of take an inventory of myself as a person to see who am I, how has Paveshan grown, what has
Mm.
his skills and experiences been.
Yeah,
And on some glance, I think people could say it could be a bit distorted or it could be all over the place, but I think
yeah,
life is shaping up to be, you know, actually really good. I think the age of AI, data, and digital
mm,
is now making professionals who require a much more layered complexion to them, which means that we need people who are not deep in one domain, but we need people
yeah,
who can be fluid and move across domains. And I think in light of that, looking at my CV and looking at my life, I think what I do
yeah,
very well is pull together a lot of areas. So
yeah,
I could be an investment accountant one day, or I could be an investment banker the next day, or I could be an
mm,
academic and a teacher the other day. I can communicate well the next day. I can be an
yeah,
accountant the next day. Um,
yeah,
so here's another thing. I've done some report writing as well for Parliament. So I'm
yeah,
a monitor as well. So I've got strong written and verbal and technical skills. So I feel
yeah,
all of these are needed to make a good professional. And so what I would say is that Paveshan now sees himself as somebody who's basically built up a foundation where he sees himself heading towards strategic finance roles and
mm,
potentially being a head of a finance function, being a CFO in the very near future, probably within the next 5 years. So I'm also saying watch the space. I'm currently
yeah,
working on some
yeah,
yeah,
man.
I had a meeting yesterday, so currently working on some interesting job ops and other ventures. So,
Yeah,
and I mean, it's not something that's far-fetched because I must admit this, even within the last 2 years, I've interviewed for
yeah,
roles as a CFO and as a head of finance. So these were, I'd say, very dynamic, agile firms. So one was in an AI, like an AI-powered or data-powered firm in the gambling industry, but going from South Africa, going internationally, which launched, and then another one in the United States in the real estate sector. So I mean, if someone's picked me out twice before, I mean, I'm sure
yeah,
it's in my very near future that this will happen. Yeah,
yeah,
and I can
man.
tell you about some other interesting experiences in my past that will tie up well with this. Yeah,
Mm,
so
mm. Yeah, man, I think it's nice to hear that, my man, about you. And again, a lot of people might not know, but we are very like close friends. And another thing that I know about you, I know that you are still busy with your ACCA. And as part of me knowing that you are busy with your ACCA, I had like a question that's related to that. So I just wanted to know, why did you choose to do ACCA when there are so many other accounting bodies here in South Africa, and how can one start their journey?
yeah, so I think with ACCA
Mm.
seen as a new entrant to the South
Yeah,
African market.
yeah,
Um, it's people are only starting to look at it as something as a possible destination in the last 2 to 3 years.
yeah,
However, it's always actually been around. It's just that people have not taken notice of it, or it's not
yeah,
been, at the forefront because doing an ACCA probably in the past meant that you wouldn't be able to access certain job ops
yeah,
or like people actually didn't see a ACCA, so they actually have nothing to aspire to. Where does an
yeah,
ACCA end up? And that's one of the questions I was asked. What can you do with it?
yeah,
Um, but I think the big thing is that we must understand that the world across all fields is moving at a frenetic or very fast pace.
yeah,
And in 2024, something very important happened in the South African space.
mm,
The Independent Regulatory Board of Auditors approved ACCA to have statutory audit rights within the South African space. What
right,
that meant was that an ACCA qualified professional who had passed all their board exams, so obviously I'll explain all of this to you now, would be
mm,
able to then work in traditional audit spaces. Um, upon entering or qualifying in a traditional audit space,
mm,
it bestows or endows something on a person. It means that they're seen as being more technical, being more competent. They are qualified chartered accountant.
yeah,
So these training opportunities are now becoming a little bit more available. And I
yeah,
think in the last 2 weeks as well, the URBA has emphasized that firms should provide more of these training opportunities to people who want to go down the ACCA route.
yeah,
ACCA itself stands for Association of Certified Chartered Accountants. So when
mm,
one thinks of what does it do, where does it take you, its
yeah,
home base or its home countries, and it's
mm,
actually more than one country. It's actually the United Kingdom or Ireland,
mm,
and then also Europe as a region. So what that means is that it has a significant strength and presence there.
mm,
Within the United Kingdom and within Ireland, it has statutory audit rights, for example, which means that one can become a registered auditor, an RA, as they
yeah,
call it here. So one can go through a training program for that.
yeah,
Within these countries, the ACCA stands as an independent body. So I have
mm,
friends who are directors. So obviously, like my life journey has been quite long. So people have like
yeah,
moved on and moved up, and like they're quite far ahead of me. But it's always nice to have people ahead of you who can
yeah,
coach you and advise you. So I also get coached. Um, and especially in these regions, and I'll even take it a bit further than that, to Asia and so many other regions, which might touch on other questions that you have for me. The
yeah, yeah,
ACCA is recognized. So one can start their ACCA at
mm,
many entry points, right?
okay,
And this is the crazy thing about ACCA. We've
yeah,
always thought, and maybe it's a good thing because, you know, um, you have so many young people today, let's say 18 and below, saying, I'm not
yeah,
going to go to university anymore. I'm not going to go to a college. I'm not going to do this anymore because what is the value of a university education? Some people are
yeah,
saying that, especially overseas, but people are now more focused on let me get a skill, let me get a trade, right? So I feel like the CA thing has always been a skill or a trade. It's just
mm,
it's always actually been that it's a vocation. And one nice thing about the ACCA is it allows you to actually start after. So in the UK they call it GC, I think it's GCSEs or something, but A level is a bit also like it's a level above that, which is like our matric a bit, like year 13, year 12, but our matric does cover some year 13 work.
yeah,
However, one can start immediately after finishing matric, which means
okay,
that if you cannot afford to study, let's say a full-on degree, like let's go to university. And now, as an academic myself as well, so this is one of the things that motivated me to they said
cool,
stay on this year. So I'm also helping a lot of young people get through the pipeline.
yeah,
A lot of people are not finding space in the public sector, and even the private sector as well. So our work as well in the private sector is doing incredibly well from a financial point of view, but that doesn't mean there's enough seats or enough people can afford that.
yeah,
It's easy to register directly with the body, ACCA.
yeah,
You pay a very small fee in comparison to, let's say, studying a degree, and you can start taking a series of about 13 exams. So next year it will be about 12 because there's a new qualification structure, and I'll get into that with you because it's actually quite exciting given the world that we're going into.
yeah,
So you can start literally building up your own degree, and by the time you've clocked up or finished those 12 or 13 exams, you get a piece of paper at the end, which is equivalent to a master's degree, right? So that's the stage I'm currently working at. So I'm almost
yeah,
on my last exam. But along the way, you can get a little certificate that says you are a bookkeeper after 4 exams. The next one
mm,
says you are an accountant after 8 exams. So it enables people to almost exit at every level, but also at the same time keep them employed and allow them to enter the workforce, but at a
yeah,
lower cost. You can also do the traditional route, which is probably like if you want to call it more rigorous. So let's say other CA bodies would stipulate get a degree.
yeah,
So you could get a degree. Make sure you get a degree from an ACCA, let's say a qualified or a learning partner, which means that ACCA's vetted that institution. So now there's more and more of them around South Africa are actually doing this. So NMMU was actually last week, and Forte. What this means is that so currently, obviously, it's WITS. It's what's the other ones? UP,
Yes.
UJ especially, yeah, UCT, Stellies. So some universities have dedicated degrees to the ACCA stream, and some have, you can have a degree, like my degree qualifies me for the national body in South Africa, ACCA and CIMA, which is great. But
Okay.
you can use it in a versatile way. So if you study a degree, it gives you something called an exemption, which means that you might start at a far higher level in the process of getting those 13 exams. So you
Yeah.
could get 6 or 7 or 9 exams that you do not have to write because your degree qualifies you to not have to write them, which is a great thing. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a big
so
jump, if I may say, man.
it's a massive jump, right? So this is the one good thing. So it means that you have a degree in the bag. If you take this route, you have the exams fast tracked for you, and then you basically pay and complete the remaining exams. Okay. There's also a lot of discounts that are available because we are African, so we come from the continent of Africa. So what the ACCA body does acknowledge is that because it is an international body, it is a UK based body, we cannot pay the same £200 that is paid in the UK because we
Yeah.
obviously have lesser earning power.
Yeah.
So you, as an African student, maybe could get less if you're South African or wherever you come from on the continent of Africa, and there's certain other countries. So even in some war-torn countries, it's free, which is a nice thing, and it's a nice incentive that ACCA makes available. And then also a lot of employers that are taking on trainees will sponsor them for their board exams, will sponsor them for additional. So you can go through tuition programs, you can go through board prep programs. So I've even tried one of that. But the nice thing is that ACCA has made it completely digital.
Mm.
So as of last year, a lot of the learning material is all online. It's all free through the ACCA Learning or Study Hub, which
Yeah.
means that you do not have to buy a series of textbooks each time a standard gets updated.
Yeah.
Literally, it comes with your, basically every year, if you're associate member or student or whatever, student member,
Yeah.
you pay a fee and everything is included. So it democratizes education. So I feel like from various aspects, especially given the context that we are in South Africa, it allows many people to become a professional accountant, become part of a body, and actually give them a chance at having a good life or a successful life, and giving them a foundation where else they would have not, because they first struggled to get a degree or struggled to pay high fees.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I chose ACCA as well because it's as I said, like, so I want it's a strategic opportunity for me, because as I said, it's a global, it's seen as a global CA, and
Mm.
recognized, not just in the UK and the UAE, Ireland and Asia, but also growing into Africa. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's other traditional markets that we can see it in. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I've answered your question, Pelelani,
No,
but
I mean,
like, sorry, I'm
you have
rambling here.
answered my question and even more, my man. I like the way that you explained how, like, the whole ACAS project is basically laid out, meaning that you have these 13 exams that you need to write. But basically, if you already have a degree, you get some exemptions, so you can start from any level depending on how many exemptions you got. Then from there, you will be allowed to write all of these board exams. And I'm more interested again on how many board exams can you write per year? Because people are already looking at this and they're just picturing themselves doing it. But if you explain it like this, they would want to know, maybe to say, let's say I got maybe some exemptions, like 7 exemption or 8 exemptions. So now that means I'm only left with like five board exams to write. And when can I write them and how can I write them? And am I allowed to write even three per year? Am I allowed to even write two per year? How many years can it take me to reach the final stages and be qualified as an ACA?
Okay, so cool, awesome. So what I would say is that there's predefined writing periods, which means
Mm.
that one can write up to 4 times a year,
Oh
which
yeah.
is every quarter or the end of every quarter. So your March
Mhm.
sitting, July sitting, September sitting, December
Yeah.
even sitting. So
Right.
basically, the first week of the end of every quarter is an
Yeah.
exam sitting.
Okay.
One can register for exams obviously based on where they are in the progression requirements of those 13
Right.
exams. So you can't take an advanced module if you haven't passed the lower module that relates to that advanced module. So that,
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense, right? But in those periods, one is actually entitled to take up to like, I think 4 exams or something, but that's strongly advised against, right? So most
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
globally just do one exam, okay?
Yeah. No, I get what you're
Because you'd
saying.
fail it, and a lot of people even struggle just trying to get through that one exam. So
Mm.
there's about there's obviously, like, you can look it up, different people say different things, but you can have 200 to 300 to 400 notional hours which you'll have to put in of study per
Yeah.
a subject. And as you step up, like, you get to the professional levels, which is the master's levels
Yeah.
exams, the final exams, then those exams could go into 300 to 500, 600 hours of preparation per an exam. So you can see that one is not going to just write the exam. And obviously, there's a lot of, as I say, scaffolding, building blocks, which means that a board course, make sure you're using a lot of touch points. So some people even go as far as, like, there's tutors, there's resources out there. People take it, it's like training for a marathon. Like, people take it very seriously. So even when I passed one of those, like, recently, and they asked me, like, before I sat the exam, so it's like a new thing. They were like,
Mm.
what did you use to study? Because, like, you need to see, like, you've studied before you enter the exam even.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I had to register that as well on my details,
Mm.
and when I got my sheet to say, okay, I can go in and with
Mm.
my ID and sit for the exam.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, man. I think that answered my question. Then again, I wanted to also know something that has to do now with the job opportunities. I
Right.
remember that I also had like another question, which basically was focusing more on where is the biggest markets for the ACCA accredited members. But
Right.
basically, you've already answered that when you
Can
were
I just stop
explaining
you? Can
before.
I
Yeah.
just stop you there on what you
Yeah.
were saying? Because it actually is a kind of question that's right there. So it was
Mm.
something I wanted to say previously. So from next year, we only found this out at the end of last year. The ACCA qualification structure is actually changing for the first time in years.
Yeah.
So it's ACCA 2027. It's obviously in line with trying to create. So the motto of ACCA is, like, think ahead. Okay, so it's all about, like, strategy and future focused thinking, like training
Yeah.
accountants of the future.
Right.
So one exciting development is that there will now be a board exam that one writes to become a data science professional.
Mm.
So that means Python, machine learning, AI, automation, all of that. So you can
Yeah.
literally take your board exam and qualify in that if you want. So I just wanted to let you know that. So they're
Mm.
dropping it by one exam, and then they're introducing that exam, right? So obviously, how ACCA works at the final levels is that you'll have 2 exams that are mandatory for everyone. So there's one which is case studies. It's called Strategic Business Leader. It's basically an MBA. It's a compressed MBA. And that's what I'm working on right now. And there's
Yeah.
obviously your core. If you're an accountant, you've got to do counting, right? So everyone has to write those. But the others, one is allowed to pick. So if you work in audit, you can pick, do I specialize in audit? If you work in corporate finance or finance, you pick, I want to write finance, right? The one interesting thing I've seen with their module in finance is that so I have an honors in finance. I've studied finance as well,
Yeah.
and as I told you, I worked in investment banking.
Yeah.
I feel very challenged by their finance module, to be very honest. I mean, I
Yeah.
haven't. It's not something I've written yet, but I'll say challenged in a case of it's serious finance. So there's, like,
Yeah.
black holes modeling and all of
Yeah,
that.
man.
So there's a lot of value in their curriculum structure, and that's what I'd like to bring across to people, like, in terms of when you pick these subjects, you really do get applied real world exposure. And I think that's one thing for me that sets it apart from a lot of the other curriculum structures that I've seen. So for me, um, I'm a very, like, everywhere, and my mind kind of thinks, and I'm a problem
Mm.
solving person. So when I struggle to learn, it's probably because I'm learning things by rote. I'm not a
Yeah.
repetition learner. I hate that. So if you're a person who likes to, like, okay, 1 plus 1 is 2, but then I can play with that number and make it into a 3 or 6, and how do I do that? And
Yeah.
maybe I want to write some code or whatever. It's a lovely designation, because it literally allows you to always be thinking about how you're taking the IFRS standard or the IAS standard and how you're applying it and how you're playing with it. So it almost
Mm.
feels like you're doing case studies throughout the whole, especially the senior level of exams. It's not just in the business leader exam.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure if that like brought a little bit more to light.
Yeah. I think you were like very clear when you're explaining that, and I think a lot of students will take this information and use it for their advantage, if I may say, you know. So I also still have a couple of questions that I want
Yeah.
to ask you, which are not directly now linked to your experience or your field, basically, but I just want to get a feel of what are your thoughts basically regarding this? But basically, just like you have been someone that has been on the job market a couple of times, you know, and I would just want to know, how did you find the recruitment process to be? Because now, remember, the companies are trying to move away from the fact that they had to only have like one interview, but now they are a couple of rounds for you to get a job. There would be maybe 3 or 4 rounds of interviews for you to get a job. And for the companies, they would justify and say that they are doing this because they were trying to get or to try to identify the best candidate for the position. Please tell me something about that.
Okay, I was gonna ask you, Pelelani, how many interviews do you think I've had in my life?
Now, man, I think there will be
No, no,
more
no, no,
than
no. Just no,
hundreds,
honestly
man.
guess. So I'm gonna use it as an answer. Give me a number.
No, man, I think maybe 102.
Yeah, so I've actually had over 100 interviews, and I'm not even
Yeah.
joking. Yeah.
No, I
So,
know, man. I've seen like your profile. I know about you. And
so
from what you have shared here during this interview, we would know that you have been in different interviews and you have occupied different positions for different companies, some of them big firms, you know. So that's the reason why I had to draft
100%.
this
So
question specially for
I
you,
also
you know.
wanted to ask you that to give your audience some confidence before I
Yeah,
like try to give this answer so that they know it's coming from a good place, right?
yeah, man.
And in terms of interviews, so I've been successful obviously at some and not successful at others, and everyone goes
Yeah,
through that. But I've had interviews from your McKinseys, your Rio Tintos, your Big Four.
mm,
Last night I even did an interview to a US based firm. Okay.
yeah,
So I did an online interview, and what I was gonna say was 2 weeks ago, even this week as well, I've been interviewed by AI. So I've
yeah,
been telling my students about that. Literally no human involvement.
yeah,
It was disturbing, but it was also enlightening. Okay, so my idea on the interview process, as you say, it's constantly evolving,
mm,
but I also do take into account that the multiple rounds of interviews. So when an interview can go from one stage to 4 stages, some people even
yeah,
take it to 6 stages, which is ridiculous.
mm,
I've obviously had to do my research on how interviews work, how to interview, those kinds of
yeah,
things. Um, One would say that if a company has to interview you more than 4 times, probably not a
yeah,
good place to work at, okay?
yeah,
Because companies generally have a good read on their candidate um, fairly early on. You shouldn't have to be. I'm not sure what the need is. Like some companies do it. Like let's say, okay, I know like McKinsey's and consultings and stuff have that, but it's more for prestige things to say. But it's not. It's not. It doesn't really give you a lock on the candidate, right?
yeah,
So you'd also, as a candidate, remember when you go in for an interview, you are interviewing the company as much as the company is interviewing you. And people always
yeah,
forget it's a two-way dialogue. People think it's more of I'm going there for a job and it's always I must always whatever the company says I listen to, right? So always keep
yeah,
that in mind as well. It also gives you a sense of or frame of, I have value to offer as a candidate because
yeah,
candidates also they don't actually realize the things that come across in these interviews when they're already approaching it with that mindset and they feel like it like the employer can feel that they're desperate. Okay, so you don't want that as well. But what I would say is, so your question was on the job market and the recruitment process and multiple
mm.
interviews. Could you make it a bit more like, so what are you actually asking me when you ask me
So I
about
wanted
the,
to
yeah.
know, maybe how did you find it to be? Was it something that was a little bit challenging? Was it something that was tiring? Because remember, if you maybe going to 3 or 4 interviews within a space of maybe 3 months or 2 months, if I may say, and you or go to maybe first round, second round for the other one. While you're on the second round for the other one, you get another one where you'd have to start from the first round until you reach the third round. But in the third round, you didn't make it to go to the fourth round. So there is constant, like basically interviews that you have to attend. But at the end, sometimes you're not successful. And if now you were to get a job, but you went through all of these interviews, maybe three or four or five, So I wanted to know how was that for you?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I mean,
Hmm.
I've been to interviews with Fortune 500 companies where I go right to the end and the job offer was almost to be handed, and they
Yeah.
would say no. And you'd have great, because remember, this process is not a process simply of doing 3 interviews. You have
Yeah.
psychometric tests, you have other tests that come up early on,
Yeah.
and those can be incredibly taxing.
Yeah.
Like recently, I spent 2 weeks trying to just study for a psychometric test because I always struggle with those little shapes and abstractions
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So, and actually they actually use it. It's a very serious thing because they use it as a filter. So what they do is
Yeah.
as a screening mechanism because they get so many applicants in, they use these tests to remove people. But I mean, the person could potentially even be really good at doing the job. It's just the volume of applicants that are coming in today. So you have to obviously stand out at each stage, firstly, and processing that. I think after a while, as we said, right, okay, I've done like, I mean, okay, all the way from being a waiter to a bartender, like everything, like all these simple interviews built up to the most complex ones. But the
Mm.
point is, an interview is an interview. So you go through the same emotions and you also go through a similar process, just stepped up. I think the idea of it and with maturity just comes down to when you're younger, you don't feel it that way because it almost feels like it's like an eternal sense of its loss. It's like
Yeah.
someone's died almost, because it's this thing that you wanted, this baby that you are nurturing, and
Yeah.
it's now your whole life, and you have these dreams and you have these aspirations. I still do it up to today. I'm even doing it right now because obviously I have some, like,
Yeah,
some
man.
issues, ideas in the pipeline, right?
Mm.
But I'm just less volatile about the whole situation emotionally. So I think one
Yeah.
thing I would rather give advice around is for young people, which is difficult because especially when you're younger and you haven't gone through it enough, you haven't repeated the cycle, is to try to emotionally regulate yourself and to detach. Okay,
Mm.
so that would be the one thing, because it's like anything. It's like a relationship. It's like dating. So it's like when two people are coming together. This is like an employer-employee relationship. It's the exact same thing. So the dynamics actually mimic or copy that exactly. So if you haven't never had the opportunities to have, let's say, a lot of job interviews, maybe you've had the opportunities to be in a relationship. So you can try and liken it to that and think about it if it's your first time going in for an interview, or
Yeah.
and but also prepare, like, prepare for that. It does become taxing, especially as you go through that many rounds. But the one thing I also will say is that has been jobs, and there's jobs right now which I'm feeling a lot more confident about, like that
Yeah.
I've gotten or I'm getting or whatever, right? I'm getting to. I would not be able to walk into an interview and I'm not be able to perform and know exactly where the interviewer is coming at, like me from. Sometimes you get an interview panel, which means
Yeah.
you can be interviewed by 3 or 5 people and you're just one person sitting there. So that's also pretty intimidating, but you wouldn't have that confidence. You need to get the reps in, as they say, if you were gymming or whatever it is you do in life. So just take it and see it as part of the reps that you are building. Because
All right.
if you're young, you have more time and you build up to it. And one day you just need, so it's always that, right? You just need one offer,
Yeah,
and then
man.
one thing starts you off, then you're fine. Stress goes down.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you, the profession, for just sharing that and also giving some words of motivation to our young ones so that they know that even if you do not get a job, if you have applied, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the end of the road. You need to keep on applying and keep on having that positive mindset. You would definitely, at the end, you would get a job. Because the only thing that you care about is just getting that one offer, then that is where you'll be sitting, and that is where you start getting the opportunities to learn and the exposures, because that is very important for the accountants. Okay, so basically, Paveshan, I think now we are coming to the end of our interview, but before we get there, I'm just more interested on what is an advice that you can give out to a third year student that is basically now thinking at home to say that what's next for me after graduation? What advice would you give to those people?
Okay. So what is this third year student planning to do? Are they planning to study further, or have they developed any work experiences? Could you make up this hypothetical third year student for me a little
So
bit?
basically, I didn't wanna add anything from there. I just wanted you to think of a student that has been fighting, has been working very hard to get to to the finish line, and finally they are 30 years now, and they are about to finish their degree, and they are only thinking to say that, okay, after I get this degree, what's next?
Okay, so they always say like, and it depends, right? So every individual is different, their
Yeah.
situation and they will be different.
Mm.
If you're a student and you know your roots further mapped out, like I made it into honors, obviously that's your next logical step. I would say still
Mm.
go on, do your honors. That's
Mm.
important. So
Yeah.
it's needs or something, not in education, training, something like that. There's an acronym for it, like an American acronym. But the point is that idea is always to keep moving forward in life. So the, the point is that you have a certain amount of time in life, and that's what life is about, right? So when you're young, you don't see that. But even if you feel like you're sitting at home or doing something, you're not doing anything, try to maybe get involved in terms of you can upskill yourself. You can still upskill yourself maybe by doing short courses or certifications,
Yeah.
whether that be on online platforms like a Coursera or an edX or whatever. Harvard
Mm.
just dropped a whole bunch of new free courses, right? So the point is you don't have to pay for that. Data Camp 2 weeks ago, it's a great place to learn about data analytics training. They had a
Yeah.
week where it was completely free, or a week or two
Mm.
or whatever. I think it was a free month. I'm not sure what it was. But the point is you could still get the
Mm.
certificate if you did the work in the month, right? Employers incredibly value that. Skills are becoming, and skills have always been, as they've been touting it in the last 10 years, super important. Your degree alone, even for a person that seems like they've got their whole life mapped out, whether they're going to honors, whether they're going to the work environment, they've secured a role. Um, their degree is actually not that competitive, and this is for everyone because it's all the other stuff that you build around it. Okay, so that's the idea. Use that time. 1 year set aside to do that can be far more valuable and make you way more valuable in the job market than thinking I need a degree, I need an honors, and then if I have a job offer, I will be secure, right? People also say that other options, other avenues, right? So entrepreneurship, okay, that's also something I'm working on right now as well. That is actually something very real, and a lot of South Africans are
Yeah.
having to turn to it, whether it means working within our borders or whether it means working from this country remotely to another country, right? That is a very possible source of income. And I must say that your age does not limit you. And this is one thing I think we get wrong as Africans
Mm.
because we see that, okay, you must be very old to hold a certain offer position or whatever, because it's made to seem like that. But if you actually look at the global landscape, people are doing things younger and younger, right?
Yeah.
You have abundance of information on the internet and an access to that. So it's also about that, and then also reaching out, right? Forming relationships. Relationships are super important. So they say your network is your net worth. They say that because a lot of the job market is also what we call the hidden job market. And the hidden job market means it's actually just a fancy word for just saying basically you get jobs not through things that are advertised, but through social capital or people that you
Yeah.
know, right? So that's also super important. But somebody who's coming from a place where maybe obviously they don't know a lot of people, but there's other avenues. Now you've got to try, you've got to set up your LinkedIn profile. None of my students have a LinkedIn profile, right? They can have TikTok profiles, they can have YouTube and Instagram, they can have all that other stuff, but they don't have
Yeah,
this.
man.
They have and they young, they like
Mm.
super extremely young Gen Z, but they have no clue like how, why they even have they sitting. So I sit with them and I was like, but you've done this architectural drawing on CAD, so you know you have technical drawing skills. No, but I didn't actually realize this, sir. No, but can you not get a reference for the project that you've done on? It could be a simple thing. It also comes down to you taking a look at yourself and seeing where your strengths lie. It might be
Yeah.
cliche, but also you've done things in the past you might not actually realize you could get money for. So you're figuring out how to monetize your skills. Okay. And the idea is to not give up. Like, I mean, I'm sure that by continuing through, like, obviously certain channels, becoming a CA, if you've gotten up to your CTA, or if you're doing the psycha route or whatever it is, like, you'd find that opportunities do open up. But on that as well, I will emphasize something. an opportunity is not even going to open up, even if you have your CTA, even if you're qualified with your articles. Up until today, even my research and even what I'm seeing in the market, besides there being saturation, besides people being qualified people are not finding jobs. So it doesn't mean now just because you're a young graduate. You could even think a few years further. But what makes people go from here to here is all that other stuff that they do in their lives. Because employers want to see a more well-rounded, more well-versed person, which means someone who actually gets involved in the community, someone who actually gives back. That's free to do, you know. What have you started? What have you done in the last few years besides all the additional skills that, as I was mentioning to you, you could find?
yeah,
No one's pushed you to learn those. So
yeah,
there's a whole person, and you need to find your person. Everyone will be unique, everyone will be different, and that's effectively what makes us stand out. Pelelani is going to be different from Paveshan because
yeah,
Pelelani might also like to DJ. He might have social interests. He might have, what else does Pelelani do? Because think about it, in the age of AI, our humanity makes us stand out, and each one of us as a human brings a different feel and a different aspect. We're not droids, we're not robots. It's not just we all come to work to do work. So when it gets down to the interview, by the way, I'm not sure if you know this. When you get an interview, people already know you can do the job. You wouldn't get the
mm,
interview if you can't. That's literally why they put you through
yeah.
the psychometric test, the vetting, the
I think
screening.
you're very right there, my friend.
So
Because
all they
if
want to
not, they
see is,
wouldn't have like shortlisted you.
can I work with you? And over
Mm,
and above that, as a human being, especially in a data-driven and digital world, and a world that's we so disconnected because we're behind screens and whatever, they just want to see,
mm,
okay, what else this person? Because I was also asked in another interview, right? Can you run the social committee? Can you host the parties? Can you do all of that?
yeah.
Literally, that was like one of my selling points. You understand?
Yeah,
Like,
man, I get it, man. Yeah, I think you're right there. That it's not only about the experience that you have. It's not only about your skills, but it's also about how you connect with other people. Because remember that when we are working, we're always working in groups. You're working in a team and all of that. So your social life is also very important when it comes to a workplace. And again, Paveshan, I just wanna thank you for availing yourselves today. And I think we had a very good conversation. And I think a lot of people and a lot of students will learn from this. And just like I've explained, we are going to share this recording with the public. And because we want people to know all about the stuff that you are sharing today. And
so,
again, Paveshan.
Pelelani, thank you so much for inviting me,
Mm,
and thank you so much for your time and to be on your
yeah,
show. I just also want to let you know, like, there's so much here that I
mm,
did not get across with ACCA, and I think there's also
yeah,
still a lot of unanswered questions. And if there are
mm,
unanswered questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Like, obviously, my LinkedIn is like one of my biggest socials, so you can find me
yeah,
there. I'm also on others, right? But obviously, if you come through there directly, all the others are all private. But like, if you come through there directly, I'll find you, right? And I don't
yeah,
want a crazy inbox, so stay away from that. Um, but I will find you. And the thing is, there's so much like more to say in terms of the pillars of just quickly going back to ACCA, your auditing,
mm,
corporate finance or governance, your financial accounting, taxation, everything is covered as a CA should do. Okay.
mm,
And in terms of where one can work in the world, it's global, right? Why they say it's 180 plus countries is because statutory audit rights are in the UK, they're in Ireland, they are now in South Africa, they are actually in the UAE, they're in Switzerland since last year, Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, China is actually one of the biggest markets. You can literally,
yeah,
yeah, China, India, Pakistan, there's also what is called an MRA. So this is what people don't often know. They kind of just know CAs can move, right? But they don't know why CAs can move. CAs can move due to mutual recognition agreements. There's a mutual recognition agreement with Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, which means if you want to become a CA ANZ in those countries, you can as well. And then obviously the Caribbean, right? So let's say fancy destination people like to go Cayman Islands. You can literally just move over there. They know what an ACCA
mm,
is, and some of their local CPA bodies allow you to convert. A lot of ACCAs also work in your JP Morgans, your City Groups, and whatever, like so your multinationals. So wherever there's multinationals operating, which means they operate in more than one jurisdiction,
yeah.
that's why a lot of ACCAs are found in the States as well. So yeah, just a quick rundown.
Yeah. I think that was very important again because a lot of people would want to know where our biggest market in the ACCA industry because again, ACCA is chartered accountants for other people that do not know because they think that only chartered accountants are CASAs, but basically ACCA are chartered accountants. And again, Pavesh, I just want to thank you for availing yourself today and just to have this conversation with us. Have a very good day, myself.
Cool. Thanks, Lani. Have a good
Okay,
day,
thank you,
man.
Paresh. Have a
Cheers.
good day, man.
Bye.
Bye. Cheers.
Bye.
Be Smart SA. Accounting professionals you can trust. Reach out to our consultants.